Did you know George Washington is responsible for the creation of bourbon?
Wait, what?
Or that bourbon's the reason why sea turtles die in the ocean every day?
They did what?
Or a Scotsman one time beat the devil in a fight by using whiskey.
Jeff, why do I feel like this is the beginning of a Whiskey Believe It or Not episode?
You're right. Join us today as we talk about these crazy stories and more on what we like to call
Whiskey Believe It or Not.
Right after this.
Don't come round and waste my time. A generation of my time. There is nothing we can do. Stop this plague from breaking through.
Welcome to Whiskey Pop. I'm Zane.
And I'm Jeff.
And today we are...
Season 6 of Whiskey Pop.
Boom!
I can't believe it. Season 6?
Season 6.
You know, when we first started this show, I think you and I had, like, our hair was like one color.
Possibly. I don't know. Mine's been pretty mixed up for a while.
And mine, on the other hand, is like, it knows what color it's heading to.
That's true.
God, you got old.
So today we're going to do a new episode of Whiskey Believe It or Not.
That's correct.
New season, new Whiskey Believe It or Not.
Which I tend to like these.
They're fun, but they're getting really hard to find some really good whiskey stories.
Well, that is what it is. So what are we going to do?
We're going to tell you 4 stories today, one not being true, and at the end of this video, you have to decide which one was not the true story.
And what do they get?
They get to find out from us if they guess the right story or not.
All right.
So before we
right?
do that and go to our first story, there's this other thing we like to do.
And it has to do with drinking whiskey.
And today we're going to have this Green River Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey foolproof.
We're going to dabble with it right now because later on, like in a week, we're going to do what with it?
We're going to review it on second pour.
That's...
Did you hear that?
So our first tale today is the Highlander and the Devil. 2 centuries ago, a Highlander by the name of Tom Campbell, right?
Right, Tom Campbell.
Took a job with a local blacksmith, a small town of Wigtown.
Wigtown.
Now, Tom, being a Highlander and all, did enjoy a dram of whiskey or two after work each day.
Well, that's all right. It's an okay, noble thing to do.
I mean, it's hard work, right?
Yeah, sure.
It's hard work. It was such hard work, the town was experiencing a plague.
Because of his hard work?
Well, because he's working harder, because there wasn't many people working.
Oh, so it made it that he had to work harder.
Work harder, right?
Because everybody was...
Because everybody's sick. You know,
I got
with
you.
the plague.
A plague.
A plague. So, Tom
Yes.
was one of the few people who haven't succumbed to the plague.
Okay.
And he had heard that things were getting worse, so he thought, you know what, I probably should stop by the pub on the way home
Yes.
and fill my jug for a good whiskey.
So
Because I may not go to big town for a while with this plague going on.
so this is where the whiskey's starting to tie in here.
This is where the whiskey
He just
starts.
has an empty jug random and he just goes and...
Well, back in those days, they didn't have bottles of whiskey. You would bring a jug to a bar and they would fill it with whiskey. So he goes up and bellies up to the bar and asks for their best whiskey.
Yeah.
They put the best whiskey they've got into this jug and he heads off home. And before he walks out the door, he says, "This plague is the devil's work. He will not get the best of me." On the way home, though, under a full moon, when he hears this coarse laugh, and guess who he comes face to face with?
Well, if I was to guess, I would say it was probably the devil.
It's Satan.
Satan!
The devil goes, "Tom, I hear you've been having a laugh at my expense,
Okay.
and it's time to pay." Now, Tom is not really impressed with this devil. He thought maybe he'd be bigger, taller,
Yeah.
or whatever, right? I expected more, to be honest. He said, "But
Oh,
would you
my.
like to have a drink of my whiskey?"
Little sassy Tom.
So Tom pulled his whiskey from the coat,
Okay.
offered it to the devil. The devil starts to take a swig. And before Tom realizes it, the devil has already drank half the bottle.
Oh, the heathen.
We all got friends like that.
We call him the devil.
So eventually Tom takes the bottle back, but then realizes that the devil may not be able to handle his liquor really well because he's starting to sway and kind of stagger a little bit from how great and incredible this dram of whiskey is that he has
All
selected.
right.
So then the devil's like, "All right, Now I want to have a wager
He's gonna have
for
a
your soul.
Oh, wait. This is the part where Tom says, well, my name's Tom, and it might be a sin. I bet you're gonna regret. I'm the best whiskey drinker it's ever been. I've heard this one before.
That's Charlie Daniels.
Oh.
I'm the best it's ever been.
So Tom said, okay, that's fair. We're going to wrestle. We're going to have a fight. Whoever wins, you can have my soul if the devil wins. And then if I win, which the devil kind of laughed a little bit, like, like you're going to win.
Yeah.
Then you will leave this town, remove the plague, and never come back.
So it's a game of pugilism. All right.
So the devil agrees because he's like, this guy's not going to beat me.
Yeah.
And the wrestling begins.
Okay.
So they go at it all night. I mean, just back and forth, taking sips of the whiskey throughout the breaks that they take. I guess they're taking breaks like rounds.
Okay.
So it gets to be a very long evening into the morning.
Okay.
And the final blows are coming across, and somehow, some way, the devil kind of slips and falls backwards, and Tom used that as his advantage. And one final blow pushes the devil back, and he falls down and loses.
Okay.
The devil screams, "No!"
Is that your best
like
devil?
Darth
voice?
Vader did, "No!"
He didn't really scream like that.
So, exhausted after fighting the devil all night,
Yeah.
Tom takes one more swig of that incredible whiskey and then passes out in exhaustion.
Okay.
Later, he wakes up, and the local priest and his wife, Tom's wife, shows up, waking up, trying to find him, and says, "Hey, are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm all right." And they said, "Well, the funniest thing happened this morning. The plague lifted. Everybody's healed."
Okay.
So the town now tell this story all the time about how Tom saved the town from the plague by wrestling the devil with the power of whiskey.
Ooh, believe it or not.
Believe it or not.
I mean, my bullshit meter is going kind of high on that one, but
How about we tell another story?
okay, that sounds good. That's good.
We'll see if this one's true or not.
All right.
Maybe your BS meter.
Makes that noise too.
So would you believe that we almost had a civil war before the Civil War? And whiskey is the cause of it.
Well, why don't you tell me the details?
18 years after signing the Declaration of Independence,
Yes.
America had almost had their first Civil War because they decided to put a tax on whiskey to pay for the overwhelming cost that the Revolutionary War cost. The problem with that was there's a lot of poor farmers in Pennsylvania and like guys who can't own land farming in Pennsylvania
Yeah.
and like the Appalachian Mountain areas. Did the Appalachians go all the way up to
I don't
Pennsylvania?
know. I thought you would know this.
I just know the story. I don't know some of the background of it. Do I look like a geologist? Wait, a geographical whatever?
Do you look like? Yes, whatever it is, you look like it.
A cartographer?
A stenographer.
Isn't that somebody that sits around in the court and
Uh-huh.
that's not it either.
Anyway.
Oh, anyway, so
They taxed the whiskey.
they
and
taxed this
then-
whiskey because these poor Pennsylvania farmers were living in an area where it was hard to move the wheat that they were
Yeah.
farming. So they started distilling wheat to make whiskey out of it.
Yes.
It was easier to move that than it was
Bales.
and bales of wheat, right?
Yeah.
The problem with that, with this new tax, it put too much pressure on them, and it really pissed off a lot of people.
And so let me guess, they decided to rebel.
September 11th, 1791, a group of very disgruntled Pennsylvanians dressed up like women. Do not ask me why they dressed up like women. And they found the tax collector in the town. They beat him, tarred
Okay.
and feathered him, and then stole his horse. But they didn't stop there. Then they started having petitions signed. They started putting up liberty poles. And it was causing such a problem, they were unable to collect taxes in that region for almost 2 years.
Okay. In the meantime, what? The country's going bankrupt?
Well, they are trying to pay for the Revolutionary War they just won.
Okay.
So there's a value to that, you know.
Well, I'm not arguing it. I'm just trying to figure out some of these loose ends.
So this led to the Whiskey Rebellion of 1794.
Okay.
George Washington, who was president at the time,
Our first president.
our
for those of you
first
who don't
president, the one that's on the quarter
know. The quarter and the dollar
and the
bill.
dollar bill.
Yes.
George Washington kind of put out a threat that, hey, if this continued,
Yes.
there's going to be a response, a military response.
So wait, sent like a couple dozen guys go like squash the rebellion.
Actually, no, on July 17th, 1794, they do this again. They capture a very wealthy tax collector in town.
Oh no.
They burn his house to the ground and
Well,
beat him.
that's terrible. Yeah.
So that's it. George is pissed.
So now he sends a few little troops.
13,000 men.
13,000 men. There we go.
George Washington leads 13,000 soldiers into Pennsylvania to squash this little whiskey rebellion.
He himself.
This is the only president ever in the history of presidency that a president has led a group of men, military men, into the field. So anyway, they go into town, but guess what they don't find?
Let me guess. A bunch of really burly women.
They don't find anything. So they all fled. So Washington George's like, what the hell happened? So what they do is they gather up about 150 suspected people.
The usual suspects.
They break it down to about 10 people.
Okay.
And they try them for treason.
And they convict them all.
And 2 of them are convicted. But then George turns around and paroles them.
He paroles them. Okay. How do you do that?
It's kind of like when, they're close to you, like they're your son.
Oh.
And then they do something bad.
Really bad. And
you went ahead and let him off anyway. Because nobody cares. It's like that.
Okay, well, I mean, that's a hypothetical situation, but this real one.
That never would happen.
It's real one you're talking about. He let 2 people go. All right.
So an interesting thing about this is the interesting part about this whiskey story.
Okay.
To kind of curb this angry mob of Pennsylvanians, because that still existed.
Yeah.
The government decided to offer them 60 acres of land if they would move to Kentucky, where corn was easy to grow. And it was easy to move around and transport. So a lot of these guys who were distilling wheat moved to Kentucky, took the extra acreage, and started growing corn and producing a new whiskey out of corn called bourbon.
Oh my God.
And because of George Washington and that act, it started the birth of bourbon in Kentucky. Believe it.
Or not.
Believe it or not.
Bourbon, did you know, is the reason that turtles die every year in the ocean?
Yeah, I heard that. It's because all the sailors, they get so sick, they just start barfing up their bourbon out the into the ocean, and it toxifies the water, and it kills them. Believe it?
That's not the story.
Not.
That's not the story.
Well, I was just throwing it out there. It's called spitballing, if you know what I mean.
It's 1880s. Gentlemen slurped their cocktails through these little straws made of natural rye grass. The problem with that is it left this kind of unpleasant flavor of this grassy, unpleasant flavor from the rye. They had a tendency also to get soft and mushy very quickly because, I mean, think about it, if you're running something through that, before you know it, you just got a grass weed of mush.
A mush.
This guy named Marvin Chester,
Marvin
Chester Stone from Washington, D.C., was sick and tired of this. His mint juleps kept getting fucked up every time he tried to drink it out of one of these straws. So he had this idea one day. He would take a pencil and he would wrap paper strips around this pencil over and over and over. And then eventually he would pull the pencil, he would brush it with like a paraffin wax.
Okay.
And then he would let it dry and then use that for a straw. In Eureka, the straw was invented.
Because some dude had to get his drink on and decided that he was gonna invent
A straw.
a straw.
So in 1888, he patented a machine that would wound the paper into a tube and coat it with paraffin wax that wouldn't melt in his precious bourbon. Drinking straw was created and conceived a better way to drink bourbon cocktails to this day, and soda.
I mean, I know you're gonna tie this into the turtle shit, but have you drank bourbon with a straw? That's bullshit.
Bourbon cocktails, maybe.
Well, maybe a cocktail.
So it was bourbon that led to the modern invention of the straw, and the reason why turtles today die in the ocean with straws up their cocaine-addicted nostrils. Believe it.
Or not, but what you're trying to say is that
Turtles are addicted to cocaine. They use the straws that they get.
use the straw
And it gets stuck up their nose.
and they die.
Yeah, believe it or not.
Believe it or not.
I can see why you're saying it's harder to find good stories.
All right, one more story then.
Okay, this better be a good one.
Well, these weren't good already.
Yeah, they're intriguing.
You got a better one?
Not really.
All right, one more tale. The Priceless Family Bourbon. The story goes like this. A young man by the name of Caleb Blackwood in the late 1800s had ventured into the wilderness to start his own distillery. The first batch of whiskey he crafted was particularly smooth, and he bottled it in a unique crystal decanter.
Okay.
So it would look pretty. So then he goes back to town and everybody kind of celebrates how incredible this whiskey is. They all try it, and then he seals up that decanter to only open it at times when there's like a birth, a family celebration, some big moment. The family will share a dram of this whiskey and pour a dram out of it and celebrate. And then it gets put away for the next celebration. Each generation, the Blackwoods would pass this down like a family heirloom to the next generation, the next generation, the next generation, slowly dwindling down that a little bit more each time over the decades. One particular poignant moment occurred during the Great Depression when the family was struggling to make ends meet, and the patriarch named Thomas at this time had to make the decision to either sell this bottle of whiskey for what it was, its pricelessness,
Or trade his soul to the devil.
or keep this family heirloom. And he said, this is not just whiskey, it's our history, our connection to who we are. By the time the family heirloom reached the 21st century, the heir to this, Sarah, a lawyer living in Louisville, Kentucky at that time, found solace in the stories that, she's been shared all these years about her family's past in this bottle. Occasionally, she would go back to the manor, open the bottle out of this protective case now that it's in, and have a very small dram of it. One day, though, Sarah knows that she's going to have to select somebody to take over this heirloom and pass it down. And today, she's looking for who in her family will take over this family heirloom that they will one day share in these stories and grow. So it's like the never-ending bottle of whiskey that is slowly dwindling down to nothing.
Okay.
Would you have sold that bottle years ago? Or do you think a legacy of something like this is something you would hang on to? Either way, I bet that's some good hooch.
You'd have me some bull crap. You know what it's like having old whiskey in an old bottle?
Yeah, but you remember when we opened that one bottle?
Yeah, but it was sealed. It had been full.
Well, this has been sealed. It's in a protective container.
Oh my God.
They probably have it now where it sucks all the air out of it.
Yeah, probably something. Right?
Probably. But either way, believe it.
Or not.
Believe it or not.
Okay, so there you have. You have 4 stories today.
And you get to decide which one you think was the false
Was
story.
the Highlander and the Devil false? Or was it the guy who invented the straw and the cocaine-addicted turtles?
That's really far-fetched, but yes.
Or was it the story about Sarah and the never-ending bottle of whiskey that gets passed down from family to family? Or is it that George Washington is a direct result of the creation of bourbon in the Kentucky area?
Or that bourbon is the direct result
of George Washington
in
sending Pennsylvania to Kentucky.
All right, well,
Which one's true?
I got my vote in.
Okay, what's your vote?
I think the bull crap one is the turtle story.
No, the bullcrap one was the Blackwood Manor story with the never-ending bottle of whiskey.
Well, I mean, that one is probably bull crap, but it could happen.
The rest of them are true.
That's
There is a town that talks about Tom who beat the devil and removed the plague from the town because
from
of
the
that.
town. Of course, we already knew about the Whiskey Rebellion.
And the Whiskey Rebellion is a true story of American history,
Yeah.
but the connection to bourbon is also true. They did give them 60 acres of land in Kentucky to move over there and grow corn.
That's pretty
which
fascinating.
inspired the birth of America's native spirit, bourbon.
Woo!
And it is true, Marvin did create the straw and patent it, and that's the straw we drink today.
And it does stick in turtles' noses every now and then.
And it does end up in turtles' noses. What do you think? That was our new whiskey, believe it or not, for this season.
It's pretty good.
Please be sure to like, share, and
Subscribe, and don't forget to ding our dong, because that's how you'll find out that we have new content just for you.
that's how you reach out and touch someone.
Or whatever.
In the meantime, hey, you guys spread some stories around, or you got a good whiskey story, let us know down below, right?
Yeah, because we'd like to believe it
Or not.
or not.
Cheers.